Without lawful transparency, reform is obstructed by arrogance. Let's take a look at how our leaders are doing at the Lehighton Area School District. We're going to have a public meeting on Monday, at which point you can provide public input to our public servants. So let's take a look, see how we do.
True, Steve? You don't feel comfortable running a meeting?
I'm comfortable either way. How's that for an answer for you?
Okay, so did you?
Please keep quiet so we can continue the meeting.
Yeah, well,
Thank you very much.
it's part of it's a
Raise
meeting.
your hand when you want to speak, and if we want to, we'll address you. Not until then. Keep the camera on me. I don't want you to miss a thing.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
My hand's raised.
We're moving on.
My hand is raised, Steve. Do you want to acknowledge my hand being raised or not? Well, would you like?
Mr. Cleaver, I believe I said if we want to recognize you.
If.
I do not want to recognize you, so we're moving on.
And you,
Okay, if that ain't bad enough. When we repeat failed past practices, or even fail to review a past practice, we fail to save the community. We fail to help. Let's take a look at this one.
Report about been handling those delinquent collections for the district.
This is in reference to delinquent collections and the aggressive nature to which those taxes are being collected by this district under the direct authority of the board. This goes back to the Pirates of the Poconos.
This is 2014.
Okay. Is there method of operation significant change from how things were done in the past?
Excuse me?
Are they doing things any differently from how it was handled in the past?
As far as their procedures, I don't believe so. I think they start with sending, a certified letter.
All right, so this next clip is just shameless. Shameless. Take a look.
Okay.
And the interest goes to us.
Yes.
And we're not paying court off in addition. The attorney fees are their cost.
Yep.
So when they say us, they mean the district, not the community. And when they say we, they're not talking about who they represent.
later than 2 months prior to the budget deadline.
So these notes are in support of your first policy.
Now this is another.
And is this
So here we go. Rita's a piece of work. Just ignorant. Discounting constituents. Maybe it's just arrogance, I don't know. But you tell me. Tell me.
Passing forward.
who is this stakeholder?
Consequences, I will. Consequences, failure to provide a balanced budget outline by the required date will result in immediate termination of both the superintendent and business administration. So this person looks for
And
consequences.
who is this person? You got to tell me who it is, or I'm not going to pay attention. I'm like a newspaper. If I don't have a name, I don't give it credence.
So,
Okay.
Okay. So listening to other people and not giving them credence is not good enough. And if listening is just too painful, be a king. Slap down the gavel and silence the opposition.
immediate removal from the board is necessary.
Okay.
To adjourn.
I motion, second motion to adjourn.
Wait.
Meeting's over.
We're done.
In the last 5 minutes.
So, who is the opposition anyway?
It just runs rampant. What do I do? You know?
You shouldn't be a chair of a meeting. It's
Yeah, maybe it has to be residency that you're born in Lehighton to be on
That's
the
only be on
board.
the board. I'm not talking about being,
How about
I'm
that?
talking about being a committee member.
I would like to do that. I would like to say anybody from outlying districts shouldn't be allowed to be on the board unless they've been here for 30 years.
So do you want the third one or don't?
No.
All right. Do you want to protect the children, Larry? Because the last one is protecting the children, Larry. Why didn't you cut it out before we protect?
Larry shut down the meeting before we could have the conversation about protecting the children. There's going to be a parent handbook coming up this meeting and a bunch of other stuff. I don't understand. They just don't want to listen. People ask why I seek resignations from these people. The reason is, once the blockade has been breached we enter the mind of Rita. And if you want to take a look at it, let's listen to a couple of these excerpts related to the creation, the responsibility of a board member to create the budget and then administer that budget to the administration, who then executes that budget. And if they need more money, they can come back to the board and ask for extenuating circumstances, but it's the board's responsibility to create a balanced budget and then make sure that it's adhered to. Let's take a look. We call these Rita-isms, by the way.
Nobody gets to create the budget. The budget is created by the needs of the district.
So that's just an excerpt. But now let's hear the whole thing. All right. So some people say it would be unfair just to hear that little excerpt and not hear the whole thing. But I find it so fair to really listen to the whole thing. And you got to, let's listen to the whole thing. Come on.
Then who creates the first draft?
Again, it's presented.
It seems to me that the numbers create the first draft.
Yeah.
Because if we have to spend X amount for salaries and X amount for benefits that we are obligated to do under contract, if we have to spend X amount under transportation, which again we contract to do, if we have to spend X amount for IEP situations and whatever has to happen, and for other classrooms that we have to put in, and for all sorts of programs that we want our kids to take advantage of, those are the numbers that dictate a budget. Nobody gets to create the budget. The budget is created by the needs of the district. That's my feeling.
Presented.
Okay. You got to hear a little bit again. One more.
Classrooms that we have to put in, and for all sorts of programs that we want our kids to take advantage of. Those are the numbers that dictate a budget. Nobody gets to create the budget. The budget is created by the needs of the district.
So, what do we need to fix? First of all, the board has a set of policies. There's a set of state laws and federal laws that every government has to abide by. The first thing we should do is abide by them. Second thing is the stakeholders have to force or know or be educated as to what those laws and responsibilities and policies are so that they can hold their government accountable. We're public servants. They should serve the public. Next, you got to make sure that the government agencies that oversees the subordinate administration, that they're following the budget. They're following the policies. You can't have Steve sit in a meeting and let the superintendent run the meeting, violate the policy, and then say nothing about the violation of the policy. You can't let an administration go over budget without understanding why or how, or have a vote or talk to the people about saying whether or not they do or don't want to go over this particular budget. Some are mandates, some are not. So until they do that, you're going to get stuff like this. Let's take a look at how this board member right here ignores the responsibility of this person to make sure that the stakeholders have the information that they need and are required to have so they can make educated decisions. Let's take a look.
We'll put the documents on after the meeting.
So this is the third committee meeting that I've attended this month that this board has failed to meet their own policy 903, which says that all pertinent documents will be provided to the public and the press so that they can review it. You're basically having a committee meeting where you're allowing the stakeholders to give input, which is also required by School Policy 011. And then you got the Sunshine Act, which requires this. And then you got the Right to Know law that makes all these documents public once they're released. So why are we failing to meet these laws and these requirements, Mr. Kleber?
Again, that's your opinion.
So what do I propose to do? Well, in the end, when they silence you, prevent you from the information, or try to keep you in the dark, speak up, speak loudly, and address your government. Use your First Amendment, use the Sunshine Act, and enforce the policies that were adopted on your behalf by this government, right? Demand lawful transparency. Let's take a look.
Can you leave the light on, sir? I'd like to be safe getting out. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All of them. Let me in. Thank you. Good morning. Be aware the information collected on behalf of the district stakeholders may not have been properly published for your review.
So when they hide the information from you, even if it's hidden in plain sight, you have to recognize what is the objective. Are they king or public servants? Who's getting paid? Are they pirate or are they directors overseeing the collection and disbursement of dollars on the behalf of the students and the community? Now there's mandates and there's options. You should know the difference between the two. Thank you. Hope you come to the meeting.